Debrief: lawful stabilization in a constitutional crisis. This is the hard line. There is no lawful shortcut for governors or Congress to take over the country through ICS. ICS is an emergency management coordination system. It helps organize operations, logistics, communications, and incident response across jurisdictions. FEMA's own guidance says these incident management and stabilization tools do not supersede statutes or existing legal authorities. What ICS can do is help keep the country functioning during a crisis, protect infrastructure, synchronize emergency operations centers, coordinate public messaging, move resources, and maintain continuity of essential services. FEMA's continuity guidance exists for exactly that reason, preserving essential functions and constitutional government under stress, including at the federal, state, local, tribal, and territorial levels. What ICS cannot do is remove a president, suspend the Constitution, or create a substitute national government. If there is going to be a lawful change in presidential power, the recognized constitutional routes are still impeachment and conviction, the 25th Amendment, resignation, expiration of term, or election. Article 2, Section 4 governs impeachment, and Section 4 of the 25th Amendment lays out the inability process. Article 4, Section 4 is not a clean ouster mechanism. It guarantees each state a Republican form of government and protection against invasion, and on application against domestic violence, but Congress's constitutional reference materials do not treat it as a direct tool for governors or Congress to depose a sitting president. It is part of the constitutional backdrop, not a practical emergency eject button. So the legally defensible sequence is this: constitutional actors handle removal or accountability. Emergency management systems handle stability. Those are two different lanes. If they get mixed together, the whole thing becomes legally vulnerable and politically explosive. What governors can lawfully do now: governors can declare state emergencies under state law, activate their state EOCs, activate their National Guard in state status, coordinate regionally, and build multi-state mutual aid structures. They can also use EMAC, which is ratified by Congress and is law in all 50 states, D.C., and multiple territories, to share personnel, equipment, and other resources during declared emergencies. Governors can also prepare continuity of government and continuity of operations plans for their own jurisdictions. FEMA's state and local continuity guidance is explicit that continuity planning is meant to preserve essential functions and constitutional government through disruption. What governors cannot lawfully do is jointly declare themselves the replacement federal authority. They can coordinate, they can resist unlawful federal action through courts and state power, they can stabilize, they cannot constitutionally install themselves above the federal executive. FEMA's doctrine is coordination without superseding underlying legal authorities. What Congress can lawfully do now: Congress can investigate, hold hearings, subpoena witnesses where authorized, legislate, restrict appropriations, and pursue impeachment. Those are real constitutional levers. The impeachment clause is explicit. Removal follows impeachment and conviction. Congress does not run ICS. It does not become incident command for the nation. Operational emergency coordination remains an executive and intergovernmental function. Congress's power is oversight, lawmaking, appropriations, and impeachment, not emergency field command, where the 25th Amendment fits. If the concern is presidential incapacity, Section 4 of the 25th Amendment is the constitutional path. The Vice President and a majority of the principal officers of the executive departments, or another body Congress has provided by law, transmit a written declaration. The Vice President immediately assumes the powers and duties as acting president unless the president contests, which triggers a congressional process. That is the actual constitutional emergency off-ramp for inability. What a lawful stabilization plan would look like. A lawful stabilization architecture would not say ICS removes the administration. It would say If constitutional processes produce a transition, or if a national emergency strains governance, emergency management systems preserve order while constitutional succession and oversight proceed. That means EOCs, continuity plans, mutual aid, infrastructure protection, coordinated public information, and resource management. That is the sober point many people miss. The country does not need a power vacuum. The United States already has continuity and mutual aid frameworks for maintaining operations under severe stress. Those frameworks are legal and established. The danger comes when people try to turn a stabilization framework into a constitutional shortcut. Risks. The first risk is legal overreach. The moment any coalition frames ICS or continuity planning as a substitute for constitutional removal, it hands opponents a strong argument that the effort is itself unlawful. FEMA guidance repeatedly treats these systems as support structures, not sovereign authority. The second risk is market and public panic. Sloppy public language about taking over, replacing government, or emergency rule can trigger exactly the chaos continuity planning is meant to prevent. The message has to be disciplined. Constitutional process for accountability. Continuity, systems for stability. The third risk is fragmentation among states. EMAC and continuity systems work best when there is legal clarity, interoperable plans, and disciplined public communication. Without that, a multi-state coalition can look improvised rather than stabilizing. EMAC exists precisely to reduce that friction. What is completely legal? It is completely legal to demand impeachment. It is completely legal to demand 25th Amendment consideration. It is completely legal for governors to coordinate state emergency planning, continuity planning, and mutual aid. It is completely legal to press Congress for hearings, appropriations restrictions, and oversight. It is completely legal to organize, speak, write, petition, and call for lawful constitutional action. What is not clearly grounded is claiming Article 4 alone lets governors or Congress remove a president by coalition. That is the part that needs discipline and precision. Call to action. Call your U.S. House member and demand immediate oversight, hearings, and, where warranted, impeachment inquiry. The official House tool to find your representative is here through house.gov. Call your 2 U.S. senators and demand public position statements on presidential fitness, war powers, oversight, and emergency constitutional safeguards. The Senate's official contact page directs constituents to contact their own senators. Call your governor and demand 3 things: state continuity planning review, multi-state coordination with other governors, and clear public commitment to lawful stabilization measures if a federal crisis deepens. FEMA's continuity guidance gives a legitimate framework for that request. Call your state emergency management agency and ask whether your state's continuity of government and mutual aid readiness has been updated for a severe national security or constitutional disruption scenario. That is a lawful public accountability question, not a fringe one. FEMA's continuity and EMAC materials make clear these systems exist for resilience under disruption. Your message should be stern and disciplined. Use constitutional mechanisms for accountability. Use continuity and emergency management systems for stability. Do not confuse the two. Do not delay on either. That is the most defensible, sobering, fact-based version of this brief.